Welcome to the Notespire Music Artist Insight Podcast, giving you a unique insight into the music and ministries of independent Christian artists. Here's your host, Paul Gibbs.
Thank you very much, Bob. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Artist Insight Podcast. I've got the pleasure today to be speaking with Tyler Ratcliffe. He is in Ohio. Tyler, great to have you on the show.
It's great to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
And how's everything? We were talking off the mic here. How's everything there in Ohio? It's a little chilly there, right?
Yeah, I got a little bit of a cold spell coming through, but the sun's still peeking out. So I'll be taking the kids to the park this afternoon. Just got to wear some sweaters.
Very cool. Very cool. We had some sun yesterday here in southern Pennsylvania, but today I was out for a while and just basically a light rain, constant. I'm ready for some warm weather, but then again, I know that it won't be too far down the road. We're going to be turning the AC on. We're going to be complaining about how hot and humid it is.
Right. It flips one to the other so quick.
So quick, yeah. Are you originally from Ohio, Tyler?
I'm actually from Indiana, so not too far off. But
okay. All right. So Indiana, yeah. So what brought you to Ohio, may I ask?
I actually bought a gym 4 years ago here in Ohio.
So you are a business owner then, entrepreneur.
Yep, I'm in the process of selling it. I'm going full-time music. I don't really have enough time to keep up with the gym anymore with what God's been doing with music. So I'm actually making that transition right now.
You know what, Tyler? I'll tell you what. And I'm in the group of people that early on, in my late teens into my 20s, I thought, okay, music full-time, that's what I want. But for me, and here's why I'm bringing this up. For me, and probably for a lot of our listeners right now, it didn't happen. God led them into a career with music kind of on the side. For me, it was a real estate appraiser. What's that got to do with music? Nothing. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, Tyler, because I know there are people on both sides of the fence that say that they went full time into music. God opened enough doors, and that's what they're doing. That's what you're going to do. There's other people on the other side of the fence there's one group over there that is very happy doing music part time because they've got a great full time career, and there's another group over on that side of the fence that's thinking about you right now and they say, "Oh man, why can't I do that?" So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first of all, I know you're a dad of 3 kids, and what's their ages? And tell us a little bit about that. I'm a dad of 2, so dads are us.
Right. Yeah. Well, I am a dad of 3. I've got a girl, and then I have 2 boys. My daughter, her name is Danielle. We call her Danny. She's 4 years old. She's about to turn 5. She is a spitfire. She is awesome. She's great. She's learning guitar right now. Actually, she just told me yesterday that she wants us to get a big bus and tour as a family. I said that sounds a little cramped, but it's a good thought. She wants to be close with me all the time, so she started traveling around with me more and more as I've been having to leave home and go do various things, and she gets to come with me now, so that's cool. My second kid, his name is MacArthur. We call him Mac. He is a Mack truck, man. He is a thick boy, but he is stout. He's great. He's learned. I mean, he's almost 3, so he's already talking pretty well. And then I've got a youngest son, and his name is Malachi Judah, and we call him Judah.
Judah, okay.
And little backstory: his name means messenger of praise.
Right.
He came along as I was stepping into music, and that was just a phase of life we were in. So we came up with the name Messenger of Praise, and then my new album was titled Messenger, which came out like a month after he was born.
Oh, very cool.
He's not doing much. He did just yesterday learn how to wrestle Mac for the first time. Mac was on the floor playing with a toy, and Judah was sitting next to me on the couch. He learned how to sit up, and he threw himself off the couch squealing onto Mac
Ooh.
and like grabbed on to his shirt, and they rolled around like laughing and wrestling. And I was like, so it begins.
Tyler,
8 months old.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was just going to say, and so it begins.
Right. It's a defining moment that will carry them through the rest of Brotherhood.
You got it.
So that was really cool. Yeah.
Oh, you got it. Well, I don't have to tell you, but I'm going to anyway, because my kids are now like 35 and 39. Don't blink. Because they go from the car seat to the driver's seat. Just it seems like overnight. But God bless you. I raised a daughter and a son myself, and my daughter came along first, and she was Daddy's and still is Daddy's little girl. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. So you are a worship leader as well, according to your website. Which, hey Tyler, why don't we tell people about your website right now, in case they can't stay with us? Let's let them know how to get hold of you.
Well, all of tags are under my artist name, Tyler Phillip Ratcliffe. My website is tylerphilliprackliff.com. My Instagram is Tyler Phillip Ratcliffe. All across the board, it's the same.
Okay.
But on my website, you can find links to all my music, most of my merch. I'm putting more merch up now. Any kind of shows, events that I'm doing, it's all on that website. I try to make it as easy as possible.
Right.
So you can, and then you can find me on almost any social media under the same tag.
Okay, very good. And we may be referring to you in promo. We'll try to refer to you as Tyler Phillip Ratcliffe. If we leave the Phillip out, excuse me, forgive us, but we'll try very hard not to do that. It's Tyler Phillip Ratcliffe, guys. Phillip with one L if you're searching for that. But I think if you find Tyler Ratcliffe with an E on the end, you'll find him as well. But keep in mind it is, let's see, the newest song is Whisper Above My Shout, right?
Yep.
Tyler? Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Great song. We've got that on our radio station, WNSMDB. And awesome song. So
thanks, man.
Yeah, great song. You are currently the worship leader at Sydney First Church of the Nazarene, and is that in Sydney, Ohio?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about that. How long have you been doing that?
So I've only been the worship leader here for about 4 months now.
Okay.
Beginning of December. I served on the worship team for 2 years. And in the meantime, I was building my own music career on the side with songwriting and things like that. And then some things happened where there was a shift in leadership, and they came to me and asked if I'd be willing to step in. So I did have to, for a minute there, I did have to put some of my own musical endeavors on the side to step in, just to learn the role. Sometimes it's like once you settle into the role, it takes fewer hours of the day.
Yeah.
But at first, definitely, it was a big shift. And because now I have the worship leader position that I hold and my music on the side, I have to step away from my other job, and now I'm doing this full time. So but it has been an honor. I mean, I excel on the musical side, but learning the discipleship and leadership portion of being a leader in the church has grown me immensely on the spiritual side as well. So that's been an awesome transition, and my team has had so much grace for me stepping into this role. The person that was here before me was here for, I believe, 18 years. So for them to have enough grace for a newbie to come in and try and lead was definitely a God thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been amazing for sure.
In those 18 years, I can only imagine the changes that came about in the church and in the praise portion, the team, et cetera. So, and who knows what changes are it's constantly changing. I want to ask you this though, Tyler. You being a singer-songwriter and having your own music ministry, that presents probably, I'll ask, does it present some challenges? Because here's where I'm going with this. I've known musicians that are performers. I hate to use that word in Christian, music, but you present your music, you present cover songs, whether they're original or cover. You're basically it. But then it's different when you get up and you have to put that aside and be a worship leader. How do you find those two things combine, or is there difficulty there, or does that just kind of flow naturally for you?
It's pretty natural for me, but you're right. It is a balance. Because when you say the word performers, like, yes, at a certain level, especially at a concert, in a concert setting,
right,
you're a performer. Now, you're not a secular performer, right? Like, everything you're doing is ultimately there to glorify God, but you are there to entertain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people are coming to a concert. They want to encounter the Holy Spirit, probably, hopefully, but they're also there to be entertained. They're there because they want to see this specific artist or hear your songs that they like, right? So there is a certain level of performance, whereas at church, you want people to see only Jesus, and pull yourself back. So there's definitely, there is an extra layer added to the performance, I would say, and there is a rawness to the Sunday morning. It's not necessarily as polished. I don't use the same musicians that I use on Sunday as I do for concerts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working with volunteers with really great hearts. The skill levels are different across the board.
Yeah.
And so, when you're working with volunteers, that you're trying to balance, how do I spiritually grow my team? How do I lead my church? And how do we have unobtrusive excellence, which is basically just how do we make it good enough so that it doesn't intrude on worship with mistakes, but also not so intense and complex that it also distracts, right? So there's like a nice balance within worship that you try to find, because ultimately too good and too bad can both distract from worship. You want people to be focused on Jesus and not yourself. But on the songwriting side, what's interesting is we haven't used any of the songs I've written in church up until I became the worship leader.
Okay.
Now, I'm talking with the pastoral team and they want me to utilize my songs. And there's a balance there because you don't want it to be like a look at me. Look at what I did. Look how good my song is. But at a certain level, you do want them to know that it came from your pastoral team, because people get very excited about when their own church does something, right? So you want them to have the excitement and the pride of like, this is what my church is doing in their ministry, but you don't want to say, this is, look at me, look what I did. So we've actually struck a balance where we allow another pastor to speak about my song before I play. So I'm not saying, look at me. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we try to get by without even telling them until people come up afterwards and say, where can I find it? And I just say, go check out my Spotify. And then they're like, that was yours? And you're like, yeah, that was mine. And then that's kind of a cool moment. But it didn't distract from their worship. So the key is to make sure it's still non-distracting.
I like that. Yeah. Now, you guys listening, some of you really perked up your ears to all that Tyler was just saying, because I know churches that struggle with that, with the whole performance ministry, as opposed to all that you just said. And I'm not going to repeat it, but I was going to ask you, Tyler, and you answered the question, if you were able to use, the songs that God, I was going to say your songs, but the songs that God has given you in your church worship setting, and you answered that. So I think that's great, because a lot of churches, I've heard people say that, no, my church doesn't, all they want is the top 10, so to speak, stuff, and they don't want anything original. But I think churches, being a singer-songwriter myself, it's great to be able to sometimes share your music, the music that God's given you with the congregation. Yeah. Honestly,
I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if my church didn't love my music. So the cool thing is the fact that we didn't use my songs when I was just a part of the worship team, that's understandable, because I wasn't the leader, and the leader wasn't interested in my song choices or whatever. I started my own worship nights, and that was a big thing here at the church. So I just said, hey, I would like to utilize my songs in some capacity. May I use the church and just tell people I'm hosting a worship night? And then I would combine some stuff we do on Sunday with my own songs and with maybe some new songs that my church isn't doing. And we would begin doing worship nights. And the cool thing is those worship nights very quickly developed into packing out the house, standing room only worship rooms. And a lot of those people did go to my church. Now it's kind of a lot of people from many churches come now.
Yes, good.
But at first it was my church saying, hey, this guy is doing this thing. You should come with us and check it out and see what they're doing. And it developed that way. So that was just a creative outlet for me to utilize my songs, but also kind of show them to my church without bringing them into rotation. So I do know that there's a lot of writers that like you don't use them on Sunday morning, and that's okay. Go host a worship night. Hey, can I use the stage for 2 hours on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night? And just say, hey, I got 10 friends coming to worship with me. Cool. And then have them invite people and then invite people. And that's what I did. It wasn't an intentional, I want to be an artist move. It was just an organic thing. Right. But it definitely can be used as an intentional move. If that's what God's calling you to do.
That's good. That's good, Tyler, because I've talked to a lot of artists who say, I would love to share my music, but I really have no place to do it.
Right.
The other churches, I've knocked on doors. They always say no. They say no. But there's an idea for you guys if you want to try that. Maybe your church would let you do that, and well, why not
use the youth room? I mean, you go where you're allowed, but where two or more are gathered, that's all that it takes to have a night of worship and get to share your songs. So
there you go.
Make your own space. Absolutely.
And guys, don't be worried if only, like Tyler just said, if 2 or more are gathered. Suppose it's only 2. Do it anyway, right, Tyler?
Mm-hmm.
Don't be worried. If you don't get 20, if you don't get 50, if you don't get 100, don't think that you failed. You gotta, just start small and build it up.
I had a great moment that I can share.
Sure.
Kind of in regards to that, if anybody's interested, is so I was able to have my album release concert in September, and that was incredible. But before that, I was invited to go play at the county fair in one county over. And normally wherever I'm invited, because it's a church or because it's an event, I don't really have to market it, right? It's just I go and the people are there, and whoever's created that event has already marketed it, and I'm just there to facilitate worship or to entertain at some level. But I was invited to this county fair, and I brought my whole band. I brought the entire sound setup, all of everything. Showed up, set up, nobody came. A full county fair with people walking around. They put us in a booth. They put us in a booth off to the side.
Yeah.
And I will let me back that up and say one person came halfway through. It was a guy I didn't know, older gentleman, sat at the very back of this little stadium space.
Yeah.
And there was no one. My wife was there with my kids. My guitarist, girlfriend at the time, who's his wife now, she was there. And that was it. And I was like, hey, let's worship to Jesus anyways, right? And I threw a worship set out there for an hour. That one guy is the only person that stopped to listen or looked our direction or anything. It was so humbling. But I will tell you, if 0 people show up, Jesus is still in that room. Right. So you still give it your best. And that one guy that was like, hey, I heard you belting out, from across the fair, and I saw there was no one here, and I felt bad, and I wanted to come sit. And afterwards we talked, and he has come to every single one of my shows since then.
Really?
And it's a 45-minute drive for him. So he comes to support, which is incredible. You never know who you're going to meet.
Oh, wow.
But also the very next month I did my album release concert, and we packed our church holds 225, and we packed 270 into the room for the album release. Hopefully the fire marshal's not listening. I don't think I get in trouble anymore. I think it's been
we're not
long enough time. But all that to say is, I could go from just one guy and Jesus to 270 person room in a month.
Right.
And so that to say, do it anyways. If you are interested in hosting your own show or hosting your own, hey, I'm going to play 10 songs I wrote acoustic. Can I get anyone to show up? Maybe not. Maybe it's one person. But you never know. A month later, you could have a packed out house somewhere. So it's good practice at least, but it's also following your calling with the Holy Spirit and just doing it anyways.
I love what you're saying, Tyler, because you got to, first of all, it's being faithful to what God is calling you to do. And remember, guys, as Tyler was just saying, you just said the word practice, Tyler, and God will use every single event, whether there's anybody there or not. You're going to learn from it. You're going to learn more about your sound. You're going to learn more about performing. If you haven't done it too much, every single time you do that, it doesn't matter how many people are out there. You just by doing it, you are going to get better at it. So, guys, be faithful. Oh, absolutely. And God may use all those little tiny crowds or no crowds, and like you just said, Tyler, the next one, he's getting you ready for the bigger crowd that is going to come. I'm going to share something real quick, Tyler. It was years ago. I was asked to sing at a small church in Lake George, New York, about maybe 10 miles from where I lived at the time. And I took my keyboard. It was a Sunday morning service, very small church. They asked me to come, and the pastor was away. It was in the summer, and this church doesn't really do much in the summer. I got there, got my keyboard set up, et cetera, et cetera. There was this man and woman. They were brother and sister. Their job was to get the church open and make some coffee. And the three of us were the only people that showed up. And I'll tell you, I was so, I'll say tempted, for lack of a better word. I guess that was. And they told me they would not they wouldn't have been surprised, or they would have completely understood if I had just packed it up and went home without doing anything. But I said, nope, we're not going to do that. How about the three of us? I'll just play some hymns on the keyboard. Why don't we just sing some hymns for 20 minutes or so? And if nobody else comes, then we'll call it a morning. And we did. Yeah. And we did. I'll tell you.
There you go.
And just like you, I'm sure that was one of the best humbling. One of the best experiences.
Very humbling.
Yes, that I have had. But anyway, so be faithful, guys. Please don't shy away from the small things, especially when it comes to ministry, because you never know.
And what's interesting is, especially as a Christian artist, you realize that God works all things together for good. Mm-hmm. Not most things, not only the big things. He will work all things together for good. So that show matters. And also on a personal motivational level, that was one of those moments where I said, this will never happen again. Mm. I will never allow this to happen again. And I think every artist needs to have that moment of, oh, okay, that's not going to happen again. We're going to, you know what I mean? We're going to learn how to make sure that doesn't happen again. If I have to learn marketing, if I have to boost and grow my social media page, I will not do this again. So whether that's quit or grow, I'm not doing this again, you know?
Okay,
so it's a great defining moment for artists, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. Like that whole learning thing, that whole experience thing. Okay. You learn from it. Yeah. Amen. Tyler, I want to go back. I want to ask you about, the music, and when did it start for you? Because a lot of artists, many of us, it started right almost from day one. Some of us were into our teens, etc., when music kind of hit us. And then I talked to one gentleman a couple of years ago that he didn't even pick up a guitar till he was well into his 50s. How about you?
Wow. 50s. Okay.
Yeah.
I started playing the violin when I was like 3.
Violin. Okay.
Yeah. I don't play it anymore, but I played it till I was about 12. I picked up the guitar and I didn't look back. But I come from a very musical family. Now that's not to say I was amazing or super great or anything, but I wanted to be a rock star so bad. And I actually had this conversation with my wife the other day. I'm like, isn't it funny how when you're aligned with the center of God's will, He does give you the desires of your heart? Because I want to be a rock star, but at the time I was writing, Jason Mrazzi love songs. John Mayer stuff. I wasn't doing Christian. I said, I don't want to limit myself to the Christian genre. It's so limiting, which, like, little did I know, Christian genre is so diverse and amazing.
Yeah.
But I wanted that so bad. And then I eventually shelved that. And I went on and I moved into the fitness realm and did other things for 10 years plus. I mean, I'm 31 now. And I didn't write another song until I hit from probably age 18 to 29 is when I would have said I started. So it took that long for God to to get me to the point where I wanted only to write for him. And when I got to that point, God said, okay, now you can have the desires of your heart. Right. And it was so interesting. You know, I used to tell my parents, like, all I want when I was young, I want to play in a stadium and I want to sing a song and I want to be able to stop singing and hear everyone sing my lyrics back to me. That's what I want. And now as an adult, when that happens, which it does, I get to tell my wife, like, the most amazing thing is when I can stop singing and I can hear all the voices pointing to Jesus. Like, it's no longer about my words and my lyrics, and I was able to be used to facilitate worship to where I can step back and they can just take it and Jesus' name can be glorified. And it's just such a small shift in those things of, like, I wanted to be a rock star. Now it's like, I want to use these things for Jesus. I wanted to hear them use these, sing my lyrics, but now I want to hear them sing for Jesus. And it's just, Jesus is the factor, right? For the aligning with his will is what gives you I don't know what I'm trying to say, but, like, it gives you the desires of your heart to worship Jesus, if that makes sense.
Yes. When
I kind of derailed there at the end, but
that's okay.
Think the point was clear.
Yeah, it was. And gives us the desires. I can also say, or we could also say, he puts his desires in there, and they become our desires because now we're lined up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're saying, okay, Lord, not my will, but yours be done, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. So along the way, let's shift gears here just for a second. I want to touch on some of these songs, the last couple of songs that you have put out. So you want to take one of those and share with us how this whole thing, and maybe your debut album, the Messenger album. What would you like to share about those?
So yeah, absolutely. I started writing after I started serving in my church. I started writing again, and that is kind of the culmination of this Messenger album. All but one of those songs, which I put one in there as like a last minute tag on, but all of those songs were written just by me, produced by one other guy, and it was that was my introduction back into what I think God has for me. And so captivating it into one album was a nice, like, capstone on that era for me. But that was the first time in which I said, if I could write songs that people could sing along and glorify God, what would I write? And they began to just pour out of me. And I wrote about 50 songs. And when I took them to studio, I recorded 13, and I put them together in that album, and I named it after my son at the time. And it was interesting because after the album came out, which, by the way, my favorite song on there is One Nation, One King. It's the first song I've written, and it is also quite a few people's favorites. I keep coming back to it. It's just high energy. It's very, like, Phil Wickham, first song of the set list at church kind of song. And I just love that. Because when I wrote it, I actually went to the Phil Wickham Brandon Lake summer worship nights for the first year. And I came home and I said, okay, if I was going to write a song to end off that concert, what would it be? And I wrote that song, and it was kind of a silly thing, but I ended up using a lot of Old Testament scripture in it, and it ended up being really fun.
Cool.
But that to say, moving on from that, that's when I stepped into the world of co-writing and meeting with other Christians, and what an amazing experience that is. It went from being extremely lonely to more friends than I can count. Now, granted, they're all on social media and through the phone and stuff. But I've had the opportunity to drive out to Massachusetts, fly down to Florida, drive to Nashville, Michigan, all sorts of places to co-write with people. And that is where I think the best songs have come from, is because you're fellowshipping as well, and it's not just that one-on-one moment with God. It's it's a product born out of fellowship, which I think brings better songs.
Oh, it's huge.
So,
I totally agree.
Yeah. So my first song out the gate was a song called "Wrestle with an Angel," and that was done with a girl named Madeline Ray. Shout out to Maddie if you can hear me on this podcast or radio. She's awesome. She's like in her early 20s, this spunky worship leader girl. I had a friend connect me with her and said, "You guys are both on the same wavelength. You need to write together."
Cool.
And we get on this call and it's like, "Hi," have to introduce yourself, right? And then you have to just jump into a very vulnerable thing, which is songwriting.
Oh yeah.
And it was like she wasn't releasing at the time. And I was, but I wasn't looking. I had never released a co-write, so I thought I was there to help her. She thought she was there to help me. Neither of us really understood the other genre, and we ended up with this Southern country rock idea. And it was like, hey, what if we wrote a song that like was just like a country anthem? And I was like, okay, let me dig through my ideas. And I pulled out this idea, and it literally was a one line. I said, I have a line, and it goes like this: "I wrestled with an angel, now I bear a new name." And she was like, "Oh man, what if we sang it all like, I wrestle with an angel, now I bear a new name?" And I was like, yeah, that. Like, let's do that.
That's
so
cool.
we wrote that song in like an hour. Like it just flooded out.
Yeah.
She posted it on social media. Just she's like, "Can I sing the chorus and post it?" And I was like, "Sure, just tag me or whatever." And she got like 2.5 million views on that video.
Whoa.
So it blew up. I had never seen my phone blow up the way it did. Like I was growing slow and steady, and then it was like 1,000 followers a day for like a couple of days, and it was crazy. And she was like, "We have to get this out." So I was like, "All right, we got to get this to the studio." But she was in Massachusetts or somewhere over there on the east, and so I was like, "Hey, I'll drive out, record your vocals, and then I'll drive back, and then I'll get everything to our producer." And then we pulled in a guy named Chad Carruthers. He's played guitar for Ann Wilson, because she was kind of our inspiration for the song. I was like, well, who does she use? And so I looked it up and I talked to him, and he was like, "Sure, I love the song," and he played on it. And another guy, Will Chapman, played the drums, and I actually heard his drumming in the song "Count 'Em" by Brandon Lake. And I was like, that's the kind of drums we need. And I was like, well, I wonder if I can talk to that drummer. And it turns out you can. It's really not that hard. And so we started pulling in all these names, and we put this song together, and then we released it, and it was awesome. I mean, we had like 100,000 listens on the first day. It eclipsed my entire previous album in the first hour.
Wow.
And that was like a year of work on that album, just for this song to eclipse it. I mean, my album is probably at about 50,000 streams. This one's about 200,000 now.
Wow.
And it was just insane. I mean, and me and Maddie became really close, and she knows my kids now and my wife, and we get to FaceTime, and she gets to say hey to the fam and stuff. So lifelong friendship out of that. It was just cool. But yeah, "Wrestle with an Angel," that's the by far the biggest song I've released. And after that, it really actually shaped the way I've kind of moved forward, because if you listen to my album versus what came after "Wrestle with an Angel," I've gone a little bit more toward this gritty singing that I enjoy to do. I found that it's just fun for me. So I'm like, well, if I have to do this for my life, I'm going to do what's the most fun for me. So that's kind of the direction I headed with the next song, which is called "Whisper Above My Shout."
Yeah.
So
cool. And I'm going to ask this because, well, I just want to know, and I think a lot of our listeners want to know: is there something that you what would you attribute the success of that song? Obviously, it was a great song. It is a great song, but there's people, and the reason why I'm asking, Tyler, is because there's people listening right now that say, "Oh man, I put a song out there. It's really good. I got 100 views, or whatever, streams,
right.
whatever." Is there and I guess I'm going to answer my own question. Sometimes we just don't know, do we?
Right.
What makes a difference?
Well, I will tell you this. There's twofold here. There's one, plan for slow and steady growth. So like if I was talking to someone who was me before that song happened, plan for slow and steady growth, but always be ready to take action. So if you are consistently putting the work in, no one can plan to go viral, right? You just can't.
No.
And you can't sit around and say, man, it would be nice if blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people do that, but I would say plan for slow and steady growth. Learn how to get your songs on playlists, learn how to market your song through social media, showing up consistently in the spaces that you choose. If you choose to do Instagram, show up on an amount that you can be consistent.
Be
One
consistent.
day a week, 2 days a week.
Yeah.
Don't go post 2 times a day for a week and then run out of content and don't post for a month. If you have 14 pieces of content, space them out and be consistent. That's the first thing you can do. Because for something to go viral, you have to really have the bones behind it.
You got to have that foundation.
The bones of consistent. Yes.
Yeah.
And the second part of that is be willing to take action and act. If a song goes viral, for instance, this one did, and it wasn't even mega viral, but it got traction, I would say. It got very good traction.
Mm-hmm.
Be ready. We put in the comments, day one, like, do you guys think we should record this or something like that? And I hit the studio and we had it done in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Done and out. I didn't do a long, advertising campaign for it. I didn't take 6 weeks in the studio. We got it done. And is it perfect? No. But the thing is, most listeners absolutely love it. And it takes, a very fine audio engineering ear to hear any of the imperfections.
Yeah.
Put it out. Take action.
Yep.
You can miss that wave and you can say, oh, I had a song that went viral 6 months ago, but it's too late. You missed the opportunity.
I just want to add that your audience isn't looking, they're looking for good, but they're not looking for perfect, are they?
No. And when you realize that you need to start giving yourself the same grace that you give to other people,
right?
You can make moves a lot easier. The paralysis dissolves.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But they say a mix isn't ever completed. It's just surrendered. It's
right.
Anyway, well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's a lot of, and that we talk here at Notespire, we talk a lot, and we're just as guilty as the rest of them, as anybody else about being consistent. Right. So that consistency, content and consistency are king and queen. Yeah. Tyler, we got a few minutes left here. I want to get some thoughts from you.
Absolutely, go for it.
And maybe the whole consistency thing might be part of this. I don't know, but I'd like to have you. I'd pick your brain and say, is there something in your musical journey in doing this music thing that God's called you to do? What are some of the struggles? Maybe pick one or two obstacles, struggles, things that you've really come up against that maybe you've had some issues with, and maybe somebody listening can get some encouragement and some knowledge from you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I have so many things I could say.
Yeah, we all do.
But I'll just narrow it down to some of the big hurdles.
Okay.
My initial hurdle was stop being alone. Stop doing it by yourself. God called you to your ministry. He did not call you to go it alone. Even Jesus had 12 disciples. Find the team that believes in you and then ask them for help and allow them to speak into it as if this isn't my music. Tyler Phillip Ratcliffe isn't my music. Tyler Phillip Ratcliffe is a ministry that I get to be a part of because I have a team. And yes, the brand happens to be my name. And I write the songs, but there are so many other people behind the scenes now that just believe in what I do. And they believe in the music and they believe what God's going to do through it. And I met most of those people online. You can find your community pretty easily, whether it be in your church, whether it be in Facebook groups, whether it be on Instagram. Start looking for your community and then pour into them and they'll pour into you. So that's my first thing, is everything we do in church and in Christ should be done in community. That's the benefit of being a Christian artist. The second thing follows the first. In the world has enough artists that are out for their music and for themselves. The world needs more artists that are out to spread the kingdom message. And speaking specifically to Christian artists, if God is not the center of what you're doing, it doesn't matter how good you are. And you could build 1 million people following, and if God's not the center of it, it doesn't matter. And that is something that many performers and artists struggle with, not just myself. Because we like the stage. Naturally, we are drawn to the stage, drawn to the attention. It's how we utilize those skills. God gave us those skills for a reason. He gave you the desire to perform for a reason. Make the performance point to Him, and you'll be successful. If you get caught up in your metrics, you get caught up in your stream numbers, you get caught up in your follow count, more so than you get caught up in the Bible and get caught up in the Spirit, you're going to miss the mark. And you won't nearly be as successful as you'd like. God will enlarge your territories when you're ready. And if you can continue to, and I'm not just saying sit around and just twiddle your thumbs until you expect God to turn you into We the Kingdom, or something. Right. You do need to put in the work, right? Just like any ministry, just like any job, put in the work, but realize that this is a Spirit ordained thing. And if you show up consistently, God will bring you the level of success He wants you to have. He will bring you the people that need to hear your word. You may only have 100 streams on your song, like you said earlier, to people that only have 100. What if one of those streams caused someone to go to come to Christ? What if you knew that, like, hey, I'm going to go through all this writing, all this production, all this marketing, and only one person's going to come to Christ? Was it worth it? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So we have the assurance that what we do matters regardless of the streams, because God can use it. He can multiply those fish and loaves and use it however He sees fit. And if He gives you a bigger stage, that is a bigger responsibility to remain humble. If He gives you a smaller stage, that is more of a responsibility to be content with what God has given you to steward. So those are just a couple thoughts that I would initially share.
And wonderful thoughts. People have, as I've asked that question of other artists that I've interviewed, several have touched on that was very important. So several people have talked about the same thing about all the things that you just mentioned. And
I'm not alone in these things, for sure.
You sure are not. And I want to encourage one thought I wanted to just add. You said don't go it alone. I'll tell you what, guys, if you thinking, well, I want my music to sound like me. Well, I want to play the guitar. I want to do all the music. I was there. Tyler, maybe you were as well. I don't know, but it takes so much. I just want you guys to realize it takes so much pressure off when you finally let that wall down and let other people in, because now, yes, you have to surrender a few things. That bass line might not be played exactly like you would have done it, or the keyboard, maybe the gal playing keyboard is a little bit better than you. Well, that might be a little humbling, but guess what? Now you don't have to do it all yourself. It takes pressure off. So I join you, Tyler, in encouraging people with the opportunity comes to collaborate and build a team.
Yeah, and to compound on that, I will say this: there have been times that I'll send something off to a musician. I do everything remote, by the way.
Yeah.
So I send things off to musicians and then I package it and I send it to my producer. So I'm kind of a co-producer in that way, that I know what I'm asking for, but then I allow the musicians to do what it is that they think they need to add to the song. And there are times I get it back and I'm like, ooh, I really don't want that bass line to walk up there. I wanted it to go to this note instead.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it, because yes, I could ask. Sometimes there's things you have to ask.
That's
but
true.
Sometimes there's things where it's like, that guy took a creative liberty that he's obviously proud of.
Yeah.
And you don't know how that's going to be used. It could be something small like that, but it could be like, honestly, you don't know what's going to happen because of that surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about the amount of times, the amount of stories we hear in the church of, oh, I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, but I paid my tithe and I gave an offering, and guess what? God showed up the very next day when I needed him, and something amazing happened because I was willing to surrender the control that I thought I needed to have. I was willing to surrender that to God. He blessed it 10 times over. So being willing to surrender a song that you have a clear vision for to serve the vision of the collective group you're working with. If you trust your musicians, firstly, then it's not as hard. But secondly, God might just bless it.
Yep.
That bass player that you allowed to play on your track might have 10 unsaved friends that just heard their first Christian song because he just showed it to them.
Yeah.
So you don't know what God's going to, you just don't.
Yep.
If we knew what God was going to do down the road, I mean, that would be awesome, but we just don't. Like, he does amazing things. So
right. Oh, okay. So, boy, some great thought. We could go on, but unfortunately, our time is just about up here. So, want to make sure people know. Once again, would you share, the songs that are out there and how people can get a hold of you and learn more about you and your ministry?
So there's my newest song is Whisper Above My Shout. Best thing you can do is in supporting me is following me on social media or follow me on your streaming service so that you can know what's coming. A big thing for growing music is the number of followers you have on Spotify. So when a release comes out, it gets pushed to the people that actually follow you, and a thing pops up and says, Tyler Philip Ratcliffe released a new song. Do you want to check it out? And that helps further the ministry for sure, because algorithmically, it makes a very big difference. So yeah, follow me on your streaming sites. If you want to connect with me, follow me on Instagram is probably the easiest. But I respond to everybody. So if you have any questions about anything that I said today, or if you say like, hey, I'm looking for my community and I haven't found it yet, like, I'd love to be your community. Reach out. I would love to pour into you and help point you in the right direction, because connecting people is really the best thing that I get to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, feel free, reach out, give me a follow, save me to a playlist, whatever you want to do. I appreciate everybody who took the time to listen today.
Amen. Well, thank you for being with us. Appreciate all that you have shared. And I know that, I've been blessed by our time together, and I know of our listeners will as well. Guys, you can hear the Artist Insight interview program. It is broadcast on our radio station, which is Notespire Radio, WNSMDB, which you can find at Notespire, Notespire, notespireradio.com. The Artist Insight is broadcast Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern Time every week. And then you can also just go to your favorite podcast site, because maybe you're listening on the radio right now and you want to hear this again, you want to share it, whatever. The Artist Insight is on your favorite podcast site. Just type the word Notespire. Once again, Notespire, Notespire, and you will find all of the podcasts that we do right there. And if you'd like to be a guest on the Artist Insight podcast, just let us know. Our email is info@NotespireMusic. That's notespiremusic.com. That's our main website. Go there, check out all that we have to offer to maybe help you do what God is calling you to do. And, of course, one thing we're called to do, Tyler, is put Christian artists like yourself, get you guys out there and let the world know about what God is doing in you and through you. So once again, we appreciate you being on the program today.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an honor, and hopefully somebody that's maybe just starting out or not quite as far down the road as I am got to glean something from what we had to say today, and that it blessed you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah. And guys, make sure you get in touch with Tyler. Please do tell him that you heard his interview right here on our Notespire Music Artist Insight. Tyler, we'll talk again sometime. Until then, you take care and God bless you.
All right. You too. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Notespire Radio Artist Insight. We hope you've enjoyed the program today, and join us next time when we again bring you a unique look into the lives, music, and ministries of Christian artists. Here on Notespire Radio Artist Insight.